It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday morning, but what happened next shook my entire neighborhood. I was sipping my coffee at the kitchen table, half watching the school bus arrive from my window, when I noticed my 10-year-old son, Marcus, standing stiff as a board at the corner of the cul-de-sac. His shoulders were tight, backpack slung low, and he looked cornered. That's when I saw her, Karen. Not just any Karen, the Karen, head of our HOA, blonde bob cut, clipboard in hand, storming toward my child like she was conducting an FBI raid. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. What in the world could Marcus possibly have done to trigger her? I stepped onto the porch just in time to hear, "You're violating HOA regulations. This grass is not for loitering." Her finger was pointing not at Marcus, but at the bus stop patch of grass, a piece of land no wider than a kitchen rug. Public property. I could hardly believe my ears. Marcus looked confused and scared, his eyes flickering between Karen and the yellow bus that was now pulling up. I stormed down the steps and called out, "Is there a problem here?" Karen spun around, lips already curled in disgust. "Yes, your son is trespassing. Children are not allowed to stand on HOA-managed lawns unless supervised." I blinked. Was this woman serious? "That's not HOA land," I said calmly, trying to keep the heat out of my voice. "It's part of the county easement. You can't police a child waiting for a school bus." She smirked and raised that dreaded clipboard like it was a badge of honor. "We've had complaints. He's broken the rules. Next time, I'll file a formal citation." "A citation for waiting for a bus?" Marcus shuffled onto the bus in silence, his little face pale and confused. I waved to him and turned back to Karen. I had let enough slide with her over the years, stupid newsletter warnings, fake rule changes, power trips over lawn decor, but harassing my kid? That was a red line. I stepped closer, reached into my jacket, and slowly pulled something out. Her eyes narrowed until they saw it, my police badge. She froze. "You want to talk rules?" I said, voice low and firm. "Let's talk about harassment, false authority, and abuse of power." Karen's face turned 3 shades of red. And this was just the beginning. The look on Karen's face when I showed her my badge. Priceless. But I knew her type. Embarrassment wouldn't stop her, it would only make her more dangerous. By the time I got home that evening, there was already a letter taped to my front door. HOA letterhead, of course. The envelope wasn't sealed, just folded, like it was urgent, or more likely, designed to intimidate. Inside was a formal notice citing my son for unauthorized use of HOA common space. It accused him of damaging the grass, disrupting the peace, and, get this, causing stress to community members. I laughed out loud. Then I got angry. My wife, Dana, read it over my shoulder and shook her head. "She's lost her mind." I nodded. "Oh, she's not done yet." Sure enough, the next day at the HOA meeting, which I normally skip, Karen brought it up in front of a dozen residents. She stood there, all smug, reading from her clipboard like it was scripture. "Children have been misusing common space. There must be consequences. I suggest a fine. A fine for my 10-year-old waiting for his school bus." I waited until she finished and then calmly raised my hand. She rolled her eyes. "Yes." I stood. "I have a few clarifications. First, the patch of land at the bus stop isn't HOA property. It's on a county easement. Second, the alleged incident involved a child standing quietly for less than 5 minutes. Third, I happen to be a detective." Gasps. Karen's face stiffened. I continued, "I've reviewed the HOA bylaws. There's no provision for policing children at bus stops and threatening minors. That's a line no one should ever cross." She tried to interrupt, but I wasn't finished. "I've also got body cam footage from that morning. Full audio. So, if you want to escalate this, file your little fines, report my son, or make any more threats, I'll happily send the footage to the local news and to my contacts at the sheriff's department." Dead silence. One of the board members coughed awkwardly. Perhaps we should revisit the interpretation of that rule." Karen didn't say a word, just stared daggers at me while the rest of the room shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. I thought that might be the end of it, but I was wrong. 2 days later, Marcus came home upset. He said a letter was handed out to the other kids at the bus stop. Karen had started targeting them, too. By Friday, the bus stop had turned into a war zone, not with violence, but with suspicion, stares, and paranoia. Marcus handed me a crumpled letter he got from one of his friends. It looked official, stamped with the HOA logo again, and claimed the children were subject to behavioral observation due to repeated rule violations. Behavioral observation. I called one of the other parents, Mrs. Feldman, and she said the same thing. Her daughter got the note, too. Only this time, she'd noticed something strange on her morning walk, a tiny camera hidden inside a fake rock near the sidewalk. Karen had placed a hidden surveillance camera at the bus stop to record children. I don't know if she thought she was being clever or just flat out insane, but now she'd crossed more than just a moral line. She was dipping her toe into criminal territory. I drove over immediately and, sure enough, there it was, nestled beneath the community mailbox, angled perfectly toward the kids. I didn't touch it. Instead, I took photos, called a contact from the department, and then paid a visit to the neighbor I knew had Karen's ear, Mr. Tripp, a quiet man in his 60s who rarely said more than 5 words at a time. I showed him the photos. He looked down at them, then at me, and whispered, "She told us it was for traffic violations. I didn't know it was for kids." That's when something changed in him. Later that night, I received a text from Mr. Tripp with a short video attached. In it, Karen could be heard on a Zoom HOA call bragging about her clever little camera and how she'd catch those rowdy little rule breakers red-handed. The next HOA meeting was set for Saturday morning, and by the time I arrived, the room was packed. I stepped up to the mic and said, "Before we begin today's agenda, I'd like to address a matter that affects every parent in this neighborhood." I played the audio. Karen's voice rang through the speakers, her laughter echoing. People gasped. One mother started crying. Another father stood up and yelled, "You filmed our kids." Karen tried to shout over the noise. It was just for safety. But no one was listening anymore. Mr. Tripp stood and quietly said, "I motion to remove Karen from her position, effective immediately, for misconduct and unauthorized surveillance." The room clapped, but Karen wasn't ready to let go of her imaginary throne. As she stormed out, she turned to me and hissed, "This isn't over." She was right. I thought exposing the hidden camera would end it, that once the HOA saw the truth, Karen would crawl back into whatever entitled hole she'd come from. But I underestimated just how far she was willing to go. 3 days after the vote to remove her, I noticed something odd. Our mailbox, one of those group units shared by 5 homes, was wide open. When I got home from work, the mail was scattered on the ground. And among the loose envelopes was one addressed to me, already opened. It wasn't just vandalism. It was targeted. I pulled the security footage from the camera I had installed on my front porch months earlier. There she was, Karen, at 2:17 p.m. in broad daylight, walking straight up to the mailbox with gloves on. She jiggled the lock, struggled for a moment, and then pried the door open with something metallic. This wasn't HOA business. This was a federal crime. I contacted the Postal Inspection Service and gave them everything: footage, timestamps, witness statements from 2 neighbors who'd seen her lurking near the mailboxes earlier that week. And just for good measure, I contacted our HOA's new acting president, Mr. Tripp, and explained what had happened. By Friday, Karen was served a no trespass order for the neighborhood's common areas, including the bus stop. But that wasn't the best part. The following week, I was off duty and standing near the bus stop with Marcus when a patrol car rolled up, not mine. Out stepped one of the local deputies I knew well. He nodded at me, then approached Karen's house. She stood on her porch in her usual cardigan and pearl earrings, trying to pretend like none of this had happened. But when she saw the deputy, her face dropped. He handed her a warning, official notice of the federal offense under investigation. She slammed the door. The neighborhood had already made up its mind. Parents were done. Kids were no longer afraid. One family even painted a little wooden sign for the bus stop that read, "Children welcome." Karen, not so much. Marcus started walking a little taller each morning. And for once, the bus stop felt like a place of peace. Weeks passed. Karen kept to herself. Her clipboard was nowhere to be seen. And although the investigation is still technically open, word is she might be moving out soon. The HOA, now run by people who actually care, is finally functioning like it should. I never intended to flex my badge or cause a scene. But when someone tries to weaponize power against children, that's where I draw the line. And this time, justice showed up with a side of karma. If you've ever dealt with an out-of-control HOA or a real-life Karen, then you know the struggle is real. Hit that like button if you were cheering when karma finally hit back. Drop a comment below and tell me your wildest neighborhood drama story, I might just feature it next. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories where justice wins and Karens lose. You won't want to miss what's coming next.